this is a little bonus video that I decided to shoot to answer the question why a person would get in a situation where they're not in a positive masculine feminine flow with their partner, like we talked about with the woman's moon in front of the man's moon rather than the reverse. How does this happen? Why are we drawn to that? Well, I'll tell you why. And the reason it's so pervasive is because it's a lot easier on both. This is why you see it so often. Let me tell you what I mean. Women, generally, because they've been hurt in the past and they have felt the pain and how hard it is to trust again and to open themselves up again, become conditioned to be in the initiating role then. They wind up looking for someone who doesn't look threatening, someone who doesn't look like they're going to do a case of hit and run, get in there and just want that one thing and then leave. Because young girls, young women, when they're in their late teens, early 20s or whatever, they, in their naivete, they think, oh, okay, you know, this is my true love, we'll be together. And young 20-year-old guys are usually not thinking that way. It's about, you know, physical pleasure. And so women get hurt. And the pain of trusting and opening is difficult. So later in life, or as they go through life, they can be conditioned to look for the ones who are going to not be threatening, the ones that's safe. And it's a big concern for women that the man is safe. It's a big issue. And if men don't realize it, if there are any men watching this video, most people that are into astrology are women, but the men should realize just how important safety is for a woman. It's very important. So the guy who is sitting there, it starts at the very beginning of the relationship. It doesn't just happen somehow. We make these choices. The man who's sitting there, who's not aggressive and coming up and saying, hey, how's it going, and trying to get at the woman, he's much more appealing to the woman who's been hurt, and that's most women. He's not threatening. The man who is empowered in his masculine energy and his masculine nature, who's going to go up and say, oh, I want this woman, and he comes up to the woman and he's like, how are you? And he's sort of aggressive. If she has a crisis of receptivity, if she's fearful of being receptive and protecting herself because of the past, when that man who came up and wanted to get with her came and got what he wanted and left, then she's going to have her walls up, and she's not going to be open to that man who is going to be in the emotionally initiating role. The man who is like, oh, I like her. The man who's going to give her all that attention, she pushes away because of fear of being receptive. So we have to understand something and be really clear, because again, in the West, especially now with all this modern New Age language, we dilute things and make them seem like they're just somehow it happened to me. And I'm sorry, but especially with women, because they're empowered to be receptive and to feel like they are attracting everything, because women bond through the power of attraction. So, we're ready for the weekly forecast now. We have to be clear. This isn't something that the woman is just somehow attracting. Somehow I attract partners who aren't attentive. Somehow I attract partners who then ignore me. Why are all men like this? They get what they want and then they ignore you. This is pervasive. This is what women generally say. This is the way they lament men. They somehow attract a man who he's interested in the beginning, which he is, and I'll talk about in a second, but then after a while he's not interested anymore. This is when the process starts. When the man who actually comes up and shows that he's interested, when he approaches a woman who's afraid of being receptive, she doesn't let him in. Because that man is going to put her in the receptive role. That man is going to challenge her to be receptive. Is she strong enough? Can she handle it? She doesn't know. But she feels like she can handle the man who's not threatening. So what happens is the man who is sitting there and who's kind of shy and who the woman has to be like, you know, give him little signals that I'm interested, here I am. See, it starts right there. It starts right there. It doesn't start with the man watching TV, ignoring the woman when she walks in, months and years down the road. It starts with the very first encounters, where the woman does little things to get the man's interest, and then he's like, oh, okay, he's still not sure, so she does a little more things, and she keeps the conversation going, and she kind of hints that she'd like him to take her out, and kind of gives a signal that it's okay to kiss her and stuff like that. This is where it starts. And it's because this is safer for the woman. Now, the thing to realize is that from the man's point of view, it's also equally difficult. Because women, obviously, you've had your heart broken by the one that you really trusted, and then he left you. But men, in the dating game, they are constantly getting crushed. I know women like to feel like they're the only ones getting hurt, but try being a man and dealing with women and the amount of rejection that you get. I mean, it's just mind-boggling. One of the reasons why it's better for men to be in the initiating role is because they have a thicker skin. If women had to deal with the amount of rejection men have to deal with, think of how you feel, if there are any women watching this, when you actually like someone and you give him the signals and you do something and he rejects you. Think of how much it hurts. It hurts, doesn't it? You know how much it hurts men too, by the way. It's painful. And some men, they can't recover. So they have a crisis of leadership and confidence. They have a crisis of leadership and confidence. So they're on the other end of it. Instead of the man being, hey, I'm going to go up, I like that one, I'm going to go up and see what's up there, and going up there and doing it, instead of that, they have a crisis of confidence and leadership. They're waiting for signals, they're waiting to see it's safe so they don't have to deal with that rejection anymore. They see a woman who's interested in them. By the way, it's not the one they picked. Remember this. This is important. But the man, he's alone because he's not acting with masculine power and going up and asking women that he's interested in, that he wants to get to know better, because he's afraid of getting hurt. So a woman, let's say you, if you're a woman watching this, give a little signal, and he's like, oh, maybe she's interested, and he checks it out. He's not sure, because women are never that obvious. They give a little clue, but they don't say, okay, kiss me now, which is really the only signal the man's going to understand, is something literal. But so he keeps going, okay, now finally we're doing it. Now at that point, what usually happens is the woman stops pursuing and lets the man pursue now. Now that she's opened herself up and said, okay, you got me, now what are you going to do with me? And the man, if this is the kind of man that the woman has attracted, quote, he's not going to know what to do. His crisis of masculine power and leadership doesn't just translate into being too shy to ask a woman out for a date. It has to do with his whole life. This is why relationships are so important, because they show our gender integrity. Like I said in the first videos, and as I'm saying, we test our gender integrity in relationships. A man who has a crisis of leadership and confidence with women is going to have it in his life. And when he can do it with the woman, he can do it in his life. I tell you, the hardest thing for a man to do, it's not to go to work and stand up and do this stuff. It's to go up and ask that woman for a date. Not some woman he's not interested in. I mean the one he really likes. To go up and say, oh, that's the one I really want. Boy, look at her. Oh, God. Have any idea what that does in a man's heart to see the woman that, oh, yeah, that's the one I really like. And to be able to go up and talk to her and not get all nervous and feel all weird. And this is the thing. When a man can do that, he's on top of the world. And he is empowered in his self, not just as a guy in a relationship with a girl, but as a man. And our gender identity is probably the deepest reality marker that we have as an incarnated being. When you think of yourself, first you know that you're a human being, and the next thing it's a male or female, man or woman. You relate to this gender identity. This is why relationships are so important in that gender integrity and gender identity. So the man who has a crisis of confidence with women is going to attract a woman who has a crisis of receptivity with men. They're going to meet each other at that place. It's going to be equal. Because if you have a man who is going for what he wants and he says, that's the one I want, and he goes up and talks to her and he's like, hey, how's it going, da-da, and she's got all her walls up there too high, and usually what happens is there's aggression that comes back, or there's other things where she's not receptive, that man is going to leave. He's going to be like, okay, well, I talk to her and, something's going on there. There's another one, and he'll find another one. Because if he's empowered in his masculine nature, that's what masculine does. It says, oh, what about this one? And it goes up and it sees it. It penetrates into that psyche. The woman who's empowered in her feminine will be open. She's not going to be helping some man along, helping him pick her up or helping him get to know her. If he's not man enough to see all that she embodies and realize the treasure that she holds inside, then to heck with him. This is the woman empowered in her feminine nature. She's not going to do little things to get his attention. Realize this. Women, especially, I'm going to say this, because women usually are the ones that decide how this goes. If you've started a relationship where you've helped the guy along and blah, 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 and now you're in a relationship with him, guess what? Chances are he's never going to be bonded to you and love you the way you want, because he didn't pick you. And maybe he doesn't know it consciously, but he's really not. In his mind, it wasn't, oh yeah, that's the one. What it is instead is, well, it's better than nothing. Well, somebody cares about me. And for the woman, it's the same thing. It's not really the one that she's imagining that's going to come and really captivate her heart and fill her with what she wants. Women bond in a relationship through the power of being receptive and receiving what feels good. And the man that she's had to help through and who she's always cajoling, she's not connecting. She's not empowered through that feminine joy, which is to receive. Just like nothing feels better to a man than to be able to be in control of his life and to know where he's going and have that confidence and clarity, which starts with being able to approach the opposite gender and see his vision penetrate into the world and be creative. For women, it's the power of receptivity, that everything is flowing, everything is harmonious, everything is whole. I can receive without needing to protect myself through fear and anger or doing little things to get attention, to spin attention onto myself. I'm full inside and I can handle what comes my way. I'm not afraid that I'm going to receive something that feels so bad that it's going to send me off a cliff. So when a woman feels empowered to receive, everything changes. And it starts many times, most of the time, with that relationship with the man. If not the man, masculine identity in general. So this is really how it starts. And there are definitely clear things in the astrology chart that show what makes these things happen. It has to do with the gender planets and the gender of the elements. Everything in astrology revolves around gender, all of it. There are so many things that show why a person will have this tendency. Like you'll see in the woman's chart that she'll have a tendency to be the one who is in the initiating role. So that relationship between the man and the woman not flowing right, it's not something that we just somehow mysteriously attract. It's a choice we make every moment. And this whole thing about the power of attraction, it's very good. It's very interesting, and it certainly has a lot of qualities of truth, but it's also been taken too far, and there's a lot of illusions around it. We attract based on the weight of the past, but in the moment, it's a choice. We wind up attracting what we've chosen in the present. It's not just like somehow we attract things, or it's not just sitting around thinking about things. It's the power of our actions to give results. That's all it is. And those choices in the beginning, that choice of the man to not approach the woman, the choice of the woman to be closed off to the man who has approached, who's going to put her in the receptive role, the choice of the woman to do little things to get the man's attention, the choice of the man to go into something even though he knows he didn't really choose that, and she might not, she's not really the one I want to be with, but it's better than being alone. And, these are all choices that we make, and we know we're making them. At least our soul knows we're making them. So ponder this. It's very, very deep. This is why I said in that first video, you have this thing set up, but this is the whole dynamic that shows it. And you'll often see it shown most simplistically by that moon relationship. And if that's there, you know that psychologically and emotionally they're not bonding. But one of the most important pieces in the 3D relationship astrology approach is looking into each individual's chart and seeing their tendency to do this. It's really important, and it's very revealing. So I just felt like I wanted to share this extra video with you because it's so foundational to relationship happiness, whether it has to do with doing astrology or doing astrology charts or not. This is something that everybody should really understand about masculine and feminine interaction. These things aren't archaic relics of the past that we're now too sophisticated to have relevant anymore. This is baloney. Masculine and feminine energy still works the same way it always works, and it will always be that way. So